Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So based on the last video regarding your perspective on love based on your moon sign, I got a few requests, asking me to make a detailed video on the seventh house. Now, the seventh house is a very huge topic. And so I decided that let me make a few videos explaining the various planets as well as the various zodiacs falling in the seventh house. Okay, and this is one of those videos that I wanted to share with you. And in today's video, I'll be looking at the Navagrahas or the 9 planets in the 7 houses. Okay, so this is going to be in 2 parts. In part one, we will cover from Sun to Mercury, and the rest of the planets we will be covering in part two. Okay, but then before we go into the meat of the topic, kindly subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Please share it with your friends and family if you think that they can also benefit from this knowledge. And please leave behind your valuable comments in the feedback section. Okay, about relations. Okay, and if you have the sun in the seventh house, so it is a sign of a possible relationship with a person who is outwardly bright, proud, possibly self-centered. Okay, and if the sun is strong, then that means the other person can be influential, generous, and noble. And in general, if you have the sun in the seventh house, it can give a very proud as well as ambitious partner. But then if the sun is afflicted, say if the sun is afflicted by Saturn, or if the sun is afflicted by sign placement or by nakshatra placement, then the partner can be really selfish, arrogant, as well as conceited. Okay. Now, the sun in the seventh house, can be a bit unfavorable when it comes to seeking love. Okay, because the partner can be really authoritative. Okay, and such an authoritative partner can exert strong pressure, and such a person may or may not understand where his or her interests are, and where they should not be interested. Okay, and such marriage can suffer from a lack of harmony. Okay, and you know if you have this placement of a very strong sun in the seventh house, then I would suggest that you should get into a discussion with your partner and decide that who would maintain a subordinate position in the relationship. Because if both of you try to hold an equal say or have an equal say in the relationship, you will run into problems. Okay, but then if the sun is getting an aspect from Jupiter, then the things can become quite soft, and the relationship can become very stable as well as productive. Okay, uh the moon in the seventh house. Okay, if I see the moon alone in the seventh house, I would of course say that the person would be a philander. Okay, but then apart from that, it'll indicate a great emotional dependence on a partner, which will often lead to early marriage, especially in the horoscopes of men with a Shukla Paksha moon. And such a person will look for his or her emotional reflection, and his or her listener and viewer in a partner, in order to realize a part of their own nature hidden from other people. Okay, now if a female has this position, then this position of the moon can indicate that such a female puts a lot of effort into relationships, into finding a partner, even if she herself does not realize it. Okay, and if someone has this position, then marriage is usually based on romantic feelings. Okay, and if this placement happens in case of a male, then you know such position of the moon can intensify the search for a female partner or a girlfriend who would be a reflection of the role that his mother played in his life. Okay, so this position of the moon in the chart of men can attract capricious, sensitive women who are very much prone to frequent and unexpected mood swings. Okay, now this placement can become difficult if the moon is afflicted in terms of sign or aspects of nakshatra. Okay, and if the moon is afflicted, then such a partnership will be a source of difficulties. Okay, so suppose a person has an afflicted moon in the seventh house, then these qualities will manifest themselves in the captiousness and resentment of the spouse. Okay, and in severe cases, you can really be attracted to real emotional vampires, people who feed on your emotions if your seventh house moon is afflicted. Okay, now if this moon is well placed and is having good aspects, then the partner will be characterized by emotionality, especially in a male's chart. The female would be characterized by emotionality, housekeeping, strong maternal instincts. Okay, and this is going to be true not only in relation to children but also to the husband. Okay, now for anyone having moon in the seventh house, either the native or the partner will place great importance on emotional resonance. Okay, qualities like trust, and these people can be very demanding when it comes to areas of emotional fulfillment. Okay, and this attitude does not contribute to stability in relationships, remember this. Okay, but it can give changes in marriage and relationships, because the moon is the main significator of changes. Why? Because the moon is you know is always waxing and waning. And you should also keep in mind that this position of the moon can indicate possible connections with married women. Okay, so it can give rise to extramarital affairs. Okay, now what if someone has Mars in the seventh house? Then this is a traditional sign of conflict in marriage. It is called as some Mangal dosha or Puja dosha, and such a person will be easily drawn into disputes and showdowns. And such a you know if you are looking to get married, of course, then either you or the partner would be trying to play the role of the alpha. Okay, so this placement can also lead to quarrels, conflicts, and also increases the danger of divorce. Okay, because when Mars gets afflicted, then the relationship or the marriage can become quite restless even with a harmonious person. Okay, and for someone who has Mars in the seventh house, such a person will have an enterprising, imperious, stubborn, and independent character in the partnership. Okay, and such a person can be belligerent in relationships with a life partner, but passionate in love. Okay, and Mars indicates passionate romances, and we know that romances are required even in stable relationships. Okay, but then if Mars is afflicted, then it can bring about an element of antagonism and a mutual struggle, as well as a heightened sensitivity in the partner to criticism and any behavior that can be interpreted as disrespectful. Okay, so if a female has this position, then it can mean that the husband is involved in Martian activities like working as a law enforcement officer or working in a law enforcement agency. And the person could also be an entrepreneur as well as athlete. Okay, now if Mars is afflicted, the partner can be very quick, very short tempered and destructive, spiteful, be internally very aggressive, and have uncompromising attitudes that attract adequate criticism and opposition. Okay, and the serious losses are possible if these people, they engage in lawsuits or in confrontation with competitors. Okay, and there is a danger that the husband or wife will turn out to be enemies or adversaries in a lawsuit. Okay, and usually in my experience, for females, this position is more difficult as compared to males. Okay, so Mars in the seventh house, as I said, it can indicate possible quarrel with your spouse, and that can lead to a break in the relationship. Okay, and since I'm speaking about Mars, you have to understand that Mars becomes very difficult to handle in cardinal signs. Okay, in the signs of you know uh, Gemini, Virgo, as well as Pisces. Okay, and if Mars is getting into a Graha Yuddha in this position, then if Mars is getting defeated in this Graha Yuddha, then it can indicate problems, in a relation with people who have this Martian personality about themselves. Okay, if if Mars is getting defeated by Saturn in Graha Yuddha, then it can indicate cruelty and vindictiveness. Okay, if Mars is getting defeated by the Sun, that can lead to a lot of irritability. Okay, and you know if Mars is afflicted by by Rahu, in that case, it can lead to lust and infidelity, especially in Venusian signs. And then, if Mars is afflicted in the seventh house and the sign is either Cancer or Pisces, then it can be a direct indication that the partner will be prone to alcohol abuse. Okay, so a lot of things to understand when it comes to Mars. Now we'll be looking at Mercury in the seventh house. Now, Mercury in the seventh house, it indicates that a person who is more inclined towards relationships built on the mental level rather than, based on the attraction from the heart. Okay, because Mercury is always the most calculative planet, and a person having Mercury in the seventh house is characterized by an interest in smart, reasonable, educated partners with whom there is something to talk about. Remember, Mercury is the great conversationist. Okay, but then Mercury is also very changeable. So this changeable nature does not exclude many connections. Okay, and people having Mercury in the seventh house, they would always be concerned about the financial status of the partner. They'll always be concerned regarding the fact that the partner should be able to take care of their physical as well as material needs. Okay, and for some, if Mercury is looking at its own sign or afflicting, if Mercury is present in its own sign, then married life can start really early, or a person can actually marry a younger person. Okay, and if Mercury is placed in the seventh house, remember it will be looking at the Lagna. Okay, so what happens is once these people they get into a relationship, they'll start looking younger than their actual age. Okay, and in general, this position gives a lot of versatile contacts in life, and for these people, new acquaintances and communication play a huge role in their life. And however, you have to keep in mind that such acquaintances do not always benefit existing relationships. Okay, now if Mercury gets afflicted in the seventh house, then it can represent a partner who is prone to arguments, incessant chatter, a person who is unreliable and possibly two-faced and deceitful. Okay, and a planet that has an influence on Mercury and its signs will characterize such a partner in more detail, since it is precisely its qualities that he adopts. Okay, now if Mercury gets combusted, in that case, this can mean a sign of attraction for people who are superficial, stupid, or even with psychological problems. Okay, and you'll see the same results even if Mercury is getting defeated in a Graha Yuddha in the seventh house. And in addition, the affliction of Mercury in the seventh house can mean a close relationship with a distant relative or relatives. Okay, now Mercury is a eunuch planet, so this presence of Mercury in the seventh house can have a very unisex effect on a partner, without an emphasis on gender, due to age, beliefs, or sexual orientation. And while analyzing the horoscopes of people with a suspicion of an alternative orientation, this factor, you know, as an indirect and additional one, should definitely be taken into account. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. Please leave behind your valuable comments in the feedback section so that I know where I can, so that I am able to know where I need to improve and things like that. Okay, so if you want a consultation regarding your chart, you are always most welcome to reach out at my given number. That number is shared in the description box. So that's it from me. I'll see you next time with the part 2 of this video. Until then, namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.